If you're anything like me, you're constantly exploring new ways to make sessions more enjoyable and effective. You've invested time, money, and energy into different tools, yet you don't always seem to get the results that you're looking for. You've tried everything you can think of to make skill acquisition programs fun for your clients and easy for your staff to run. You've printed and laminated countless pictures, invested in expensive toys and possible reinforcers, and even experimented with different apps. Yet you can't shake the feeling that there's a better way, a hidden piece of the puzzle that could revolutionize your practice and truly make a difference. Imagine a world where every ABA session is engaging, motivating, and data-driven, where technology seamlessly integrates into your sessions, enhancing your ability to teach, assess, and empower your clients. Where you have the tools and strategies to unlock each child's unique potential, regardless of their challenges. What would you do in the next week if you could see your clients and staff excited to work together? What if you were able to collect generalization and maintenance data from home outside of ABA sessions? Does this sound too good to be true? Maybe. I'm going to let you decide. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Amelia Dalfonts. I am a BCBA and I co-founded Master ABA with my twin sister, Diana Kelly. Through Master ABA, we help BCBAs gain confidence in their skills so they can have a greater impact with their clients. Our focus is on ethical, compassionate, client-centered practices. This course is eligible for CEUs. You must watch the video all the way to the end. There will be a short quiz at the end of the lesson. You must also mark the mission accomplished lesson complete to receive your CEU certificate. In the mission accomplished lesson is information about how to update your BCBA number in your account. Please update your number before you mark the lesson complete. This will ensure that your certificate populates correctly. Your certificate will not be emailed to you. You can find your certificate by logging into your account on Master ABA Academy. Scroll all the way to the bottom on the sidebar menu on the left side of your screen and click on My Certificates. If for some reason you miss a step or have any trouble with your certificate, email us at support@masteraba.com. We're happy to help with anything you need. After taking this course, you will understand the current research on using technology to teach skills, determine when to integrate the use of technology into intervention plans, utilize technology-based interventions for skill acquisition and generalization or maintenance, evaluate the effectiveness of technology-based interventions. Throughout this course, I will equip you with practical tools, knowledge, and strategies to make informed decisions about integrating technology-based interventions into your practice. I'm going to dive into some of the research about technology-based interventions, but first I want to introduce the other person who is here with me today. This is Patrick Vega. He is one of the developers of an app called FirstWork, which is an app that is specifically designed for use in ABA settings. One of our members was part of their beta group and told me about the app, which is how I met Patrick. Patrick and I met over Zoom a couple of months ago. So he introduced me to the app and we talked a bit about their plans for the future of the app. He's really passionate about this project and they have a great vision for how this app can help our learners. He's going to talk to us more about the app in a few minutes, but first let's talk about the research around technology and technology-based interventions. I started diving into this idea a little when I was doing research for another CEU course about 10 trends in the field, but dug into it more after I met with Patrick. I have used apps with my clients in the past for different purposes, but wanted to know more about the research on this topic, which is what I'm going to share with you today. The use of technology by young children is on the rise. This probably doesn't come as a big surprise to any of you. Tablets are built into the back of headrests to keep kids busy in the car. Many restaurants that cater to families have tablets at the table to make the wait for food more tolerable. The strollers you can rent at the mall have tablets built in to entertain kids while their parents shop. I see kids with smartphones sitting in shopping carts, and I know the parents of most of the children I work with over the years rely on technology to give them at least a brief reprieve. I found 6 research articles that I thought were especially interesting or helpful. I'm just going to hit the highlights of each one, then we will jump into ideas you can use if you decide to integrate technology more into your sessions. Even though I have witnessed the increase in screen time by children all over, I wanted to quantify it a little. Radesky et al. 2020 conducted a study that looked at the use of smartphones and tablets by children ages 3 to 5. The data were highly variable, with approximately 15% of children averaging more than 4 hours per day. The average daily usage among children with their own device was 115.3 minutes per day. The most commonly used apps were YouTube and YouTube Kids, followed by browsers, the camera and photo gallery, and viewing video streaming services such as Netflix. That's a lot of time spent on smartphones or tablets, especially given the passive nature of some of the most commonly used apps, and the fact that this study didn't include TV time. Griffith et al. 2020 conducted a systematic review of the literature surrounding the use of apps as learning tools. This research was published outside of ABA in a peer-reviewed journal called Pediatrics, so it was not a single subject research design. This review consisted of 12 randomized controlled trials and 3 quasi-experimental studies. The interventions in the studies included various conditions such as classroom instruction, app interventions, and non-interactive videos. The outcomes measured in the studies included early math, learning, phonological awareness, vocabulary, letter knowledge, word learning, and executive functioning. The length of interventions varied across studies, ranging from 5 days to 1 year. The authors found that interactive apps can benefit early academic skills, particularly in math, for typically developing children. There was no evidence of an intervention effect for apps aiming to improve social communication skills for autistic children. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends limiting screen time to 2 to 5 year olds to less than 1 hour per day of high quality educational programming, and encourages co-viewing of screens with children. Interactive apps have the potential to support active engagement through game-like activities, adaptive learning technology, feedback and rewards, and repeated practice of foundational skills. Young children can learn from interactive touchscreen apps, particularly in the areas of early math and language arts. The use of tablets and touchscreen devices in early childhood education has both positive and negative effects on children's learning outcomes and development. The effectiveness of tablet use in early childhood education depends on factors such as the quality of the educational apps, the amount of adult guidance and interaction, and the individual characteristics of the child. King et al. 2017 conducted a qualitative study that included 17 education professionals, including teachers and speech and language pathologists, who were working in classrooms for autistic children. The study focused on integrating tablets into standard instructional methods in a whole class setting. The participants used tablets in a variety of ways, such as using them as rewards or for turn taking. Challenges of tablet use in the classroom included potential increases in repetitive behavior and the need for educational professionals' involvement with the children. The study found that tablets can be beneficial to students by compensating for limited verbal communication, facilitating literacy development, improving academic performance, and reducing challenging behavior. Moore and Calvert, 2000, compared teacher-led behavioral instruction to computer-based language instruction and found that autistic children were more attentive, more motivated, and learned more vocabulary in the computer program than in the behavioral program. The computer software program utilized perceptually salient features, such as interesting sounds and object movement, to enhance children's attention, motivation, and memory of nouns. Children in the computer condition were significantly more motivated to continue treatment compared to children in the behavioral condition. There was a positive correlation between the duration of attending and learning, indicating that children learned more when they attended more in either condition. And the authors believe that integrating learning software in classrooms could provide a cost-effective method for teaching to supplement current behavioral and instructional practices for autistic children. A study by Esposito et al. 2017 included 30 participants diagnosed with autism who received ABA services. The participants received 6 hours a week of one-to-one therapy with a behavior therapist using discrete trial training and natural environment teaching. The participants were divided into an experimental group and a control group. The experimental group received additional daily practice with 3 tablet apps designed to transfer educational activities. Data were collected on game scores and standard therapy outcomes. The children in the experimental group showed greater progress within standard therapy compared to the control group. Linear regression analysis revealed that the children's abilities at baseline had an impact on the game scores for the imitation app. The apps were found to be suited to the participants, but also considered too easy for the majority of the children. Tablet applications have been shown to be effective in providing educational training for autistic children, offering features that can engage and motivate them. The authors argued that professionals should form partnerships to create efficient products for children with special needs and acquire funds to support research and interventions. And this brings us over to Patrick now. Patrick and I have been forming one of those partnerships. So Patrick, can you give us a demonstration of how FirstWork works and what a BCBA can do with it?
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick. I am the creator of an application called FirstWork that digitizes the DTT process all the way from setup all the way to reinforcement. As you'll see here, the application can be used to deliver lessons both inside of sessions and at home because it's built to be very engaging and easy to use. If we open up the application, we can go and create a new lesson to take a look at how the framework works. So here, if we go to try to create a new receptive ID lesson, we will see that we have a huge set of targets that we can use to select for our lesson. We have over 1,000 targets with 4 exemplars each. So you can really work on just about any noun out there in the real world. And we took great efforts to make sure that it was a representative sample of the real things in the world around us, making sure that there are both real depictions and cartoonish depictions, and that we're really picking a set of targets that represents the actual natural world. Here, if we wanted to take a look at safety signs, for instance, we can pull up the safety signs category, select a handful of categories or targets within that category, and we can take a look at the customization options here. You'll notice that we can change everything from the field size to the distractor difficulty, which chooses how similar the distractors will be to the correct answer, and everything in between so that you can create a lesson that really matches the needs of the learner that you're working with. As we set up the lesson here, we can go and take a look at the framework itself. So as you will see, this framework is very familiar to anyone who has done DTT with cards. The application was built in concert with hundreds of BCBAs who provided lots of feedback that could help make the application something that really was easy to use and effective and representative of what people were doing every day with their cards and wanted families to be able to do at home. So here we'll launch our safety signs lesson and we'll see how the framework works. As you'll notice, if we get an incorrect answer here, we have an error correction system, something that's very similar to what people would traditionally do with their physical flashcards. We're also providing prompts to make sure that the experience is really easy and guided so that there is all of the scaffolding that learners need to support their growth. But the beautiful thing with the application is that you can also remove some of that prompting and some of that scaffolding to create more difficulty as you go on. So as we'll see here, we're flying through a DTT lesson. And I would love to show you one of the most interesting things about the application, which is our reinforcement component. So as we've been talking about tablets and screen time, one of the biggest reinforcers in this modern world is access to tablet time, but it's really difficult to work with. And having the tablet time be in the same place as you're learning can really lead to some challenges. It's hard to balance the desire to be on the fun applications with the focus required to be in these educational experiences. So the way that our application works is we limit access to fun applications like YouTube or Netflix or games while the learning work is happening. So you don't have access to those distractors. And as we'll see here, once we complete our lesson, we will be able to earn time on those fun applications as designated during the setup. So you could, for instance, have to answer 5 receptive ID questions in order to earn 2 minutes on YouTube, which can be a really great way to introduce digital rewards that are very motivating and can also encourage use at home, because this is something that is really motivating for kids, easy to set up for parents, and is focused on all of the goals that are really relevant to your learners. So it's something that's really great for both in-session use to digitize the process of using those flashcards, and also something that can really move quite nicely into the home context, where it's possible for parents to continue the learning work in a way that would be really quite difficult without a system like this, because you need to have all those materials, know how to set them up, and then of course also track the progress that you're making. So that is, in a nutshell, how the FirstWork app works, and would love to continue a little bit of a breakdown of some of this research to share how we use this research to inform the way that we develop the application. As Amy mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, tablets are incredibly ubiquitous in this modern world, and it's something that actually increases over time throughout childhood. So if we look at 3 to 5-year-olds, we're going to see that we're spending about 2 hours per day on tablets. And of course, as mentioned, this is not including TV time. But if we look at the data over a larger period of time and look at kids who are a little bit older or teenagers, we'll see that the increase is pretty steady throughout life, and kids will often end up spending close to 8 hours per day on these digital experiences by the time they're in high school. So tablet time is here to stay. It's something that actually does increase over time. What we've tried to do with FirstWork is build a solution that can allow us to work with this reality and try to make it something that can be more positive for kids. All of this time is fairly developmentally irrelevant. If you're on YouTube and you're watching something fun, you're not really learning very much. And so if we look at that as a pie chart or something like that, we'll see that there's a big window of the day that is really not being utilized to build skills or to promote development. And that's what we think we can do with the FirstWork learning framework, where we can trade some of that entertainment time for learning time by leveraging entertainment time as a reward, as opposed to something that is just typically given without very many constraints. So traditionally, folks only have access to things like parental control applications, and FirstWork makes it possible to have an intermediate solution where instead of just having access on or off, you can have access become conditional and based on doing things that are actually really important, like working on building skills, for instance, doing a DTT lesson. Interactive apps are really wonderful if they are high quality, as was mentioned previous, and the research can show this. So at FirstWork, we've taken a lot of time to speak with professionals who are running sessions every day to build in all of the things that they really wanted to see inside of a DTT application, so that it could be something that was effective both inside of the session context and at home. So we've spoken with hundreds of BCBAs to build in every feature inside of the application. In fact, we've actually never generated a feature idea all by ourselves. We only build things that are really exciting to a really wide range of professionals in ABA and inside of special education, so that we have features that really are speaking to the needs both of the professionals who want to have a more effective and efficient way to deliver their lessons, and for kids and for families who also are going to be using this application to continue the skill building at home. So everything inside of our application is really built based on what PCBAs would like to see inside of one of these applications. And it's been really great to be able to have that source of quality feedback from professionals who are doing this every day to figure out what features are going to be most important. So our design philosophy is really based off of trying to mimic what professionals are doing every day, so that we can just have a digital framework that essentially does what folks are already doing. Classroom integration of digital tools is something that has been really exciting for us at FirstWork, because the application is used both in group ABA settings as well as in special education classrooms. And the thing that we've been hearing there, which has been really wonderful, is that by being able to tailor both the specifics of the learning to a specific learner, so being able to tailor all of those lessons to be really specific, and also being able to do the same thing with reinforcement, is something that has been really powerful for teachers, especially when they're working with multiple kids at once. It's very difficult to provide that level of attention to one learner as just one person when you're working with a number of people at the same time. And so the great thing with having an application that can both be specific on the learning goals front and on the reinforcement front is that you can create a very engaging experience that allows for learners to be working on things that are important to them, while also being engaged. And that's, of course, a really big challenge in both ABA and special education, where engagement is one of those big moderators to the success of the whole experience. So being able to work with a system that both has goals that are relevant and a system to deliver those lessons that is engaging for kids can really make a big difference in how you can manage a classroom or a group of learners when you just don't have the ability to work one-on-one with everyone at the same time. So as you'll see here, the application is really customizable both from a goals perspective and from a reinforcement perspective, where we can select which type of modalities we want to work on from a learning perspective, or from a reward perspective, we can select which applications are going to be limited as distractors and are going to be allowed to be earned as a reward once these lessons are completed.
Despite knowing how important it is to measure our learners' use of skills outside of session, this is something that can be exceptionally hard to do in practice. I'm curious to know how many of you are collecting these data now. In the past, I've used homework calendars and asked parents to collect just the bare minimum of data. But taking data is unfamiliar to most parents, and it can be hard for them to record data accurately, even if they're willing. Usually it just leads to them not following through and them feeling bad about themselves when we meet next. And then it leads to me feeling frustrated that I still don't have the data that I need. Simplifying this process with technology can reduce this challenge for parents and make it easier for BCBAs to incorporate generalization data that is collected at home. An app like FirstWork, with the ability to have preset lessons with all the restrictions in place already, makes it so easy that it's actually likely that a parent will implement the practice sessions. Imagine being able to accurately report these data in treatment plans. I'm pretty excited about the possibilities.
One really nice thing about FirstWork is that we are collecting all of the data from the DCT trials as they are happening, so you don't need to worry about collecting data while you are running trials. But this does introduce something new, which is that you need to get the data from FirstWork into your existing EHR system. Something we wanted to walk through today quickly was how you can go through this process so that you can save that time and be able to use the application successfully during sessions. So to walk through it, as we'll see here, we're going to pull up a DTT lesson and we'll be answering some questions. Now we have completed this lesson and we want to use this data and be able to keep track of the progress that we're making. Very reasonable, of course. So as we'll see here, we're going to go to the view progress page and we will see that the data that we have collected on the targets that we're working on are right here at our fingertips, and we'll press on one of these and we'll see that we have a graph for today that shows the progress we've been making. But of course, this graph and this data needs to go get into our EHR system so that it is in the place where all of our other data lives. And what we suggest for this, and what folks have been doing who are using FirstWork, is instead of transferring data continuously, so as you do the trials, you enter them directly into your system, what folks do is they will run all the trials, not transferring the data as it's happening, so really just focusing on the learning. And then in the last minute or two of session, what they will do is they will open up the FirstWork app and transfer the data into their system. So to give you a little bit of a simulation of this, we will open up the targets. We'll select one that we were working on today. We'll see that we did a couple of them correct, a couple of them incorrect, and then we will transfer that information directly into our EHR system under that target so that we have a record of working on that target today and the progress that we've made. Using this approach, you're able to use FirstWork during sessions or at home with families and be able to get all the progress that's being made directly back into your system so that it's not lost and can be accessed whenever you need it. So this is the best way to do this currently with FirstWork, where you can be focused on the lessons while you're doing them, and then at the end, you can just take all the data from the lesson and import it into CentralReach or whatever system you're using. Something else that's worth mentioning here as well is that you can export this data if you'd like to do additional analysis on it or have access to the hard data in more of a graph or Excel format rather. To do this, what you'll do is you'll press the export button in the view progress page on Android or iOS, and then we will be able to generate that report for you. And what it looks like is this, as you'll see here on the screen. It's a simple Excel format that has all of the data in rows and columns so that you have access to it and can do further analysis. So there is this option as well if you'd like to export your data in a different way. Some folks are exporting the data and then going into that graph and then plopping it back over into their system after the session is over as well. So these are the two best ways to do it.
One of the most exciting elements of FirstWork is that it's something that is really motivating for kids. Kids love access to their favorite reinforcers that are in the digital world. And so having something that can really bring kids to the table to engage in the learning experience can really unlock the at-home use case in a way that wasn't possible before. We've heard wonderful stories from BCBAs about kids who were not responding very well to physical flashcards being much more engaged with a digital framework, both because the actual experience of doing the trials can be so much more quick and responsive, and because they're able to earn rewards that they really care about. And one of the things that's most exciting about that from our perspective is that this is something that can be used at home by parents without having all of the expertise that a BCBA or an RBT has, which has often been one of the big barriers to that generalization and continued learning at home. So moving outside of the framework of using analog lesson delivery can both improve motivation and engagement in the actual learning experience. And one of the big tag-alongs of that is that it can move the context where you can actually do that learning. So a lot of things that happen inside of ABA or special education are really very specific and tailored and focused. And so doing that at home and empowering parents to continue that learning really has quite a lot of ask involved. But having a system where a lot of this is already conceptualized and put into place makes it possible for parents to pick this up and continue working on building these types of skills at home, as you'll see here with one of our receptive ID frameworks, which you can set up in just seconds. And most interestingly, and one of the cool things about it as well, is that you can actually share these programs with parents inside of the app. So not only is it easy to deliver the lessons, it's also easy to share lessons that you know the parents should be working on at home, further reducing the difficulty of making it possible to continue the learning outside of sessions. So as we saw, there is some really great research on the effectiveness of DTT applications. DTT is a really established framework, and so it's not surprising that it can be digitized and could have the same kind of impact that it has with physical flashcards. One of the big things that we're focused on at FirstWork is bringing together all of the really exciting things that you can do with physical flashcards and making it possible to do those using an application, which has previously been quite difficult with apps because there's just so much that you can really do with cards if you think about it. You can do everything from shifting how similar your distractors are to the correct answer, changing the field size, changing the prompting level, changing the number of questions you're going to ask, changing the amount of reinforcer you're going to earn. There's just a wide range of things that you can do with DTT, which is part of the reason why it's such a great framework. It can really meet the needs of almost any learner. But putting that into an app is actually quite difficult. There's really a lot that people want to do with an application that's working on DTT skills. And so we've been able to build a lot of really wonderful features that allow you to mimic the things that you could traditionally do with cards that would otherwise be quite difficult to do with an app. And we've even been able to build features that allow you to do things that would be quite difficult to do with cards that people would like to do. For instance, we have this wonderful distractor feature, which allows you to choose how similar your distractors are to the correct answer. So you can be pulling up trials and making sure that the distractors are matched to the correct answer in a way that's suitable for your learner. So you can make them easy, make it so that you're pairing a safety sign with a color, for instance, so the safety sign is really salient, or you can make it much more difficult by having the safety sign paired with other safety signs, so you can't just rely on the fact that it's a sign to find that that's the correct answer. So in short, one of the really great things about digitization is that it allows for you to take these frameworks that have a lot of really wonderful elements to them and then make them into systems so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time and can even start doing things that would be quite difficult to do in an analog setup. Notably, things surrounding setup can be quite simpler with an application. You don't need to laminate cards. You don't need to set them up between trials. You don't need to reshuffle fields. So you can save a ton of time using an application, and it can be possible to set things up in a way that might have been really difficult to do with your physical cards.
One challenge that I've encountered both with new RBTs and parents is getting them to run skill acquisition trials correctly. There's a lot to remember to make sure a trial actually helps the learner progress their skills without becoming prompt dependent. They need to rotate the stimuli, fade the prompts, rotate through different teaching trials, provide error correction, and more. With an app like FirstWork, you reduce training time so you can focus on other areas of programming or behavioral needs. I have used a couple of other apps that present skill acquisition trials, but none of them allow me to preset a lesson that controls access to reinforcement and share that lesson remotely. I have been working in homes, and sharing lessons from home allows me to save my valuable in-person time to focus on the learner, staff, and families.
One of the most exciting things that you can do with FirstWork is share a lesson directly with a parent or an RBT so they can deliver the same exact lesson that you have set up. Here we're going to show you how this looks. So I'm going to play the role of the RBT here, and Amy is going to be playing the role of the BCBA, and she's going to create a lesson, as you'll see here on her screen, where she is going through the FirstWork app to go select some targets and select some customization settings to tailor the lesson to this hypothetical learner. Now that she has created and saved this lesson, and we can find it here on the home page, we'll see that what she will do is copy this lesson, and then she'll go over to her email and shoot me a quick email with the code for that lesson. Now we'll pick up on my screen as the RBT, and we will open up our email, see that we have a new note from Amy about a lesson that she would like us to run with one of our learners, and we can copy that, open up the FirstWork application, import, and then we will see that we have the same exact lesson available on our device now. So Amy has successfully transferred a DTT program from her device onto our device so that we can deliver it the exact same way that she had set it up, which is something that really reduces the telephone game that happens in ABA, where folks will create these lessons and it's really hard to know that they were delivered the exact same way that you had envisioned them, because of course there's just a lot of opportunities for things to change a little bit along the line, and often that can lead to things getting a little bit off track. But with this feature, you're able to know that the lesson that you set up is the exact lesson that is being delivered. So as we'll see here, we're going to launch this lesson, and then the beauty of it as well is that we are collecting this data. So at the end of the experience, we can take a look at the data and even send that right back to our BCBA so that they have access to all the progress that we've made. As we'll see right here, we'll export the data and we'll send it right back to Amy, who will have it on her device. So this is just one of the things you can do inside of the FirstWork app, but it's a really beautiful feature to save a lot of time sharing these lessons and also making sure that the lessons that are being shared are really the lessons that you want to be delivered.
So a broader conversation that we've been having is about generalization. So DTT is a really wonderful framework, but as a lot of people have seen, it's something that really does happen mostly in the professional context because of all of the necessity there is to set things up correctly and know exactly what you're going to do with the cards. And so it's something that is really difficult for parents to do at home. Even parents who are super motivated to continue the learning work that's happening in session might not have the materials, might not have the know-how about how everything is set up, and then also would have difficulty actually tracking the data and sharing the progress that's being made. So oftentimes, even when there is continued learning happening, it's really difficult for the professional team to know what happened, and then it doesn't work itself into the plans that are being made perfectly. So would love to hear your perspective, Amy, about some of the challenges to having DTT be something that can be used by parents, and a little bit about the history of that dynamic.
Yeah, I got really excited about this app specifically for this reason. One of the things that I find is that parents are often struggle with delivering and limiting reinforcement. So I might get a parent to be able to run some trials or do one set of activities, but then once they deliver the reinforcer, they're done. They don't ever come back from that. And so generally that's been really limiting in what the parents are able to do, because once they give the iPad to Johnny, then the parent goes off and does something else and they never come back to it. And Johnny has the iPad for an hour or 2 hours. So for me, this is really exciting because I have a lot of parents who would do more with their children if it was already set up so that they could deliver the reinforcement easier. And then I could go in and collect the data and see what the child's able to do outside of ABA sessions.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful response. I totally agree that I think one of the big challenges that parents face is not being able to implement these strategies super easily. And of course, as behavioral scientists, we know that things that are difficult are just going to happen a lot less often. And so reducing that friction can really have a very big impact. And also being able to work with the most powerful reinforcers that you have around, it's just really wonderful as an option. One of the big issues with screen time, as I see it more generally, is that there's very little that people can do to control how screen time looks inside of their house. It's usually a binary question of if you're going to have screen time or not. And then if you do have screen time, the type of tools you have to control how that experience looks are quite simple. They essentially just turn off applications during periods of time of the day. So one of the really cool things with the app and the things that I'm really excited about for generalization and just continued learning is that it's easy to pick up. It's super engaging because we're working with those motivators that kids really care about. And it fits into that period of time during the day where very little is happening right now. So if we're looking at that 2 hours, for instance, that was mentioned before, that's a period of time that is a really great opportunity to be building skills, because if we're not intervening during that time really isn't going to be contributing too much to growth and development. So being able to take a look at a period of time that's very nascent during the day and try to be improving that is a really interesting way to kind of think about generalization, because it's working on a time basis that is kind of nascent and not really being focused on very much. And a lot of the attention is on the rest of the day, which is also typically pretty booked out. So it's kind of a window of time that a lot of people are interested in changing, but just don't have great tools to do that. So one of the big hopes that we have for the application is that it can be something that can really empower parents to change the way the screen time looks in their house, and be something that is more productive for their kids.
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you when I was doing some of the research, and I was thinking about how you might be planning some new updates to the app or how it's even currently used. I came up with a couple of questions that I thought would be pretty helpful for our audience. In the study by Esposito et al., 2017, the authors revealed that the apps were considered too easy for the majority of participants. Can you talk a little bit about how you address the level of difficulty within the FirstWork app and what your plans are for making it more adaptable to the needs of the learner? I know you touched on it, but could you just dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that difficulty is a really interesting one, especially for DTT, where there's a lot of different directions that you can go to make a question more difficult. So what we've done with FirstWork is take a customization focused approach, where instead of sort of fixing the difficulty at one specific level, so it'll work for some kids and not for others, we've created everything so that it's super customizable, so that you can essentially determine the difficulty level and scaffold it up from something that's really simple to something that's much more difficult. So some of the key ways that you can change difficulty within the app are that we support a wide range of field sizes between 1 and 6. So of course, if you have more questions or potential answer options, it's harder to guess and the questions become more difficult. So it's a very standard way to increase difficulty. But we've also done some other things that are a little bit more complicated. So for instance, we have multiple different levels of prompting that you can use. So the level of assistance can kind of go up or down depending on where you are in your learning journey. So you could, for instance, scale down the support as you move towards mastery so that the trials are a little bit more difficult. You can also do things like choose how similar the distractors are to the correct answer, which is another way to make the question more difficult by making the actual discrimination task a little bit harder by removing the amount of reliable context cues that there are for a correct answer. For instance, in a hard lesson on FirstWork focused on safety signs, if you were working on, finding the stop sign, there would be 5 other signs that you have to choose from. So just being able to identify that there's a sign will not be enough for you to find that correct answer. You'd have to know that it's the octagonal sign or know exactly what a stop sign is in order to find the correct answer. So by having a customization focused approach where you can scale things up based on what makes the most sense, you really have a lot more control over difficulty. And so hopefully the system won't put you in a position where it's much too easy for some learners or much too difficult for others. You can really kind of match to whatever the needs are. So definitely something we're really focused on. And I think is one of the cool things about the application is that that difficulty component can really scale with your learners.
In one of our conversations, you had mentioned some of the research that was going to be happening with the app. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I have a science background, I have a research background, and one of the first things I wanted to do when I started working on this application was getting a research study started so that we could really have the hard data about how this works with all of the controls in place. Of course, it's really wonderful to do betas and case studies and work with people where you can really get a great understanding of how well the app works and where you can improve it. But there's no real substitute for just doing legitimate IRB-backed research. And so that's what we've done. We've started a research initiative with a ABA organization and a university. We actually just started data collection this week, so it's really, really exciting to see that we're there. As I'm sure some folks know, doing research really does require a lot of time and effort. So it's been really wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to do this research. This study will be focused on the efficacy of the application. So it's a single subject case study design with about 12 learners. And we'll be looking at the efficacy of the application for building receptive ID skills. And then we'll also be looking at generalization so that we can see how well the learning generalizes into other contexts where you would be doing these receptive ID activities. So it's a really cool way to have a little bit more of a robust understanding of exactly how well the application works. So really excited for that and hope it will be the first of many studies that we're going to do.
That'll be fun. I can't wait to see what the results end up being.
Absolutely.
Can you explain how FirstWorks data collection and progress monitoring features work? That's
Absolutely.
one
Yeah.
of the things that I think is pretty interesting and unique about the app.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're really excited about is making everybody a little bit more efficient. And there are a lot of things that happen inside of ABA and continued learning that really have very little to do with the actual, intent of the learning and are just things that you have to do. And one of those things is collecting data. When I was working as a technician, one thing that I always found really difficult was that you have to be doing all of this learning work, knowing exactly how it went, and then recording it before you forget. You can't, you can't do too much, or else you're just not going to remember exactly how things went. And so traditionally, you have to kind of split your focus between actually delivering DTT trials and recording how they went. Which is just another opportunity for things to go off the rails. If you're not paying total attention to the learner you're working with, that's kind of a demand you're putting on them almost to kind of just sit there and wait for the next thing to happen. And so one of the cool things with the app is that we're collecting the data automatically right when you do the trial, and then saving it in the database for the app. So if you're a technician and you're working in sessions, you don't need to worry as much about the data and how things have gone. You can focus a little bit more on the actual learning work. And then, of course, for parents, one of the beauties of this is that it allows you to have all of that rich data on how everything's been going, and it's easy to share with your professional team so that they can understand the progress that you're making at home, and it can really fit into a comprehensive understanding of the progress that's being made, which is often one of the difficulties with continued learning, where if there is learning work that's happening but it's not being recorded, it's hard to understand how that will work into future plans for a learner. You need to verify that that learning has happened. So a lot of the time you're going to have to work on the same goals multiple times, and it just isn't enabling that level of collaboration where mom and dad can be working on something, making real progress, telling you about it, and then you can really understand that that's happened and have the data to take a look at and analyze to figure out what's next. So one of the things we're really excited about the app is that data component is really dramatically simplified, both for the professional use case and for parents. So hopefully we can just have a lot more data-rich understanding of DTT. And of course, also people make mistakes. So if you're collecting the data automatically, there really isn't very much opportunity for somebody to accidentally, forget, how the fourth trial went, or not remember the exact level of prompting that they did, or something like that. It's very easy to happen. So it's just another way to kind of simplify what people are doing and hopefully improve quality of life and data richness of the learning work.
That's great. What are the plans for future updates or enhancements?
Yeah. It's a great question.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed is how you guys are so responsive to the feedback and making updates already to the app, even though it's brand new.
Yeah, we're the way that we build everything is by doing what people tell us. So if you have ideas for the application, we love to hear them. Right now, the application is in a really nice spot for noun-based DTT work. So our library is really focused on nouns at this point. So some of the things that we're adding are a wider range of content so that we can work on some of those pre-academic skills and early academic skills, as well as more ABA-oriented goals. So things like introverbals and feature function class are coming to the app really soon. We're also working on increasing the customization and control over the whole experience based on feedback. So we're doing lots of little things like adding randomization features so that you can make the lessons a little bit more varied, adding interspersed master trials so you can create opportunities for a little extra momentum throughout your trials, and just doing all the little things that people do in DTT that can make it such a great framework. So those are kind of some of the shorter term focuses we have. One of the bigger, longer term focuses that we have, which we're also really excited about, is expanding the way that this framework can be used. So right now, the way that the system works is you can earn time on your favorite applications by completing these learning lessons. And of course, learning lessons are wonderful. Learning lessons are important, but it's not the only thing that is relevant to kids. There's lots of things that can be relevant, that could be better to be doing than just screen time. So what we're planning to add is a setting or a feature within the app, rather, where you can be much more general about what the contingency is going to be. So instead of necessarily having to complete 10 receptive ID questions, you could do something a little bit more general, like perhaps putting your clothes in the hamper, and then you could have 5 minutes of screen time. So we're planning to create a system that allows for parents to use screen time as a contingency a little bit more broadly, so that access can be situated into life in a little bit more of a developmentally relevant and productive way. And so the parents just have a little bit more control over what device time looks like. Because right now, as we had mentioned before, you really only have two options. It's on or off. And there's a lot more there's a lot more that you can do in reality than just, provide access or not provide access. Something sort of in the middle where there's a bit more of a balance can be a really great fit. So we've been hearing really wonderful feedback about that concept and are excited to get that built.
So at first, I didn't see how I might use an app like this. In fact, I have another app that I bought years ago that does some similar things that I no longer use. I use NET almost exclusively, and I wasn't sure if I would use an app that uses a DTT method. But I realized that there's a really great use for this app that can do something that I haven't been able to do with the other apps that I've used. Because the app controls access to the other apps, like we've talked about, and allows me to preset specific lessons, I could set the app up for parents to use outside of ABA sessions, like we've talked about. This can give me generalization data without parents having to collect any data at all. They just need to launch the preset app. I think that this is an amazing use for the technology. It's really the thing that got me excited about it. I think that parents have a really hard time trying to utilize teaching opportunities and reinforcement. And I think this is a great way to introduce that to parents. So even though I don't generally use DTT during my sessions, I do see a use for this with parents. And obviously, if you're using DTT in a clinical setting, then it's also pretty effective there too. Implementing new ideas and technologies into your daily practice is not just about making changes, it's about embracing a more compassionate, effective approach that benefits everyone involved. If you have taken courses with me before, you know that I like to make sure you have the steps you need to take to implement what I'm teaching. So here they are for this course. First, assess your current practices and identify your learners' needs. Take a moment to honestly evaluate your current practices. Consider areas where technology could assist you in becoming more efficient or effective. Is technology something that could benefit your practice? Then, if you do decide to pursue integrating technology into your practice, do your homework. Even though I've talked about FirstWork a lot during this course, there are lots of other options available to you. You must choose the right tools for your practice, ones that align with your needs and those of your learners. Try out a trial period where you use the tool with a few select cases, monitor their progress, and document the impact the app has on their progress. If you see positive outcomes, create an integration plan. Outline clear steps for expanding the use of the tool and considering a paid version. Then train your team. Ensure that everyone on your team understands how to use the tool effectively. Offer training sessions and create a support system that they can access when they encounter challenges. Finally, evaluate progress and adjust your strategies based on data. Reflect on the data collected and assess if the tool meets your objectives. Get feedback from your team, learners, and parents to understand their perspectives and experiences. Based on the feedback, tweak your approach. Be flexible and willing to make changes. Technology is here to stay whether we like it or not. The best thing we can do is to experiment with what's available and take advantage of what it can do for us. Follow the steps I just talked about to see if technology can make your life just a little bit easier. So if any of you are interested in trying the app, Patrick has arranged for me to be able to offer you all a 10% discount if you use the link in the resources tab in this course. Full disclosure, I am an affiliate for them. So if you make a purchase, it will help support some of the efforts that we're doing here at Master ABA. And that wraps it up for today. I hope you are eager to check out how you can integrate technology into your sessions. If you're watching this for CEUs, you will need to complete the quiz at the bottom of this lesson. In the Mission Accomplished lesson, you will find information about how to change your BCBA number in your account. Please update this if you need to before you mark the lesson complete. You will not receive your certificate until you mark the lesson complete. Your certificate will not be emailed to you. You can find it by logging into your account. There are instructions and an image to help you locate the certificate in that Mission Accomplished lesson. There's a brief survey also in that last lesson. Please take a minute to complete it and let me know what you thought of this course. It helps me improve the courses that I'm offering. Make sure to email us with any questions at support@masteraba.com. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you in the comments.